I grew up in a small town back in Germany in the early 1980s. Very beautiful, pretty town, but I also experienced, when I was a small boy, certain anxieties. I was a very shy kid. I had a hard time to socialize, and I even experienced the symptoms of stuttering. So at the age of 10, I thought to myself, something needs to change if I want to have a happy life. So I remember myself standing in front of the house of my parents, looking over the street to the neighbor's house, and I saw the door of the neighbors and the doorbell. And I thought, what would happen if I just crossed the street and ring the bell? And while I was imagining this, I felt anxiety, because it's something you're not supposed to do. So for some reason, I just crossed the street, I rang the bell. An older lady opened the door, and I asked her, like, hey, do you want to hang out with me? And she said, look, we can have a chocolate drink, come in. After the chocolate drink, she was like, look, maybe it's time to go back to your parents. So I was very proud of myself that I faced that challenge to overcome fear, to ring the bell. So next day, I continued the game. I went to another house, rang the bell. Someone rejected me. So it went on for days and even weeks, ringing many doorbells in my small hometown back in Germany. So after probably a few months, people in my hometown knew that crazy kid ringing all the doorbells. So I grew up, I graduated from high school back in Germany, and because of the support of my parents, I could study film in London in the UK. So at the end of my film studies, I had this dream job I wanted to do, to become a comedy reporter for MTV Music Television back in Europe. So I went to an audition, and I got the job. So from now on, I was the interviewer, the person to interview Hollywood A-list celebrities, like here with Halle Berry in Berlin promoting her latest movie. But my interview style was shaped by a little odd challenge at the end of each interview. A little odd challenge which is changing the game between the reporter and the celebrity, and the audience at home watching the show was waiting for that challenge to happen. So in this case with Halle Berry, I interviewed her about Catwoman, the movie, and at the end, I had to pull out my eyelash and give it to her as a present. So Halle Berry was pretty surprised, but she said, hey, that's awesome, I never get presents from reporters. So she was so happy that she took my eyelash and placed it in one of her very private parts. So a year later, I met Angelina Jolie. Same story, interview about her latest movie, but also the odd challenge. This time, the odd challenge was to force her into the longest handshake ever. So I introduced myself at the red carpet. It's Michael Wigge from MTV. Can I just ask you a couple of questions about the movie? And she was like, yeah, sure. She gave me her hand. So I shook her hand while asking random questions. 5 seconds, 10 seconds, 15 seconds, 20 seconds. She couldn't stop laughing. So I continued 30 seconds, 40 seconds, 47 seconds handshake with Angelina Jolie until she took her hand back. So she was pretty excited about the whole thing. She said, Mr. Wigge, you are a strange but fantastic man. So at the age of 30, people who work for MTV, in front of the camera, like as reporters or anchors or hosts, tend to be sent into retirement. Because older than 30 is pretty old in music television. So this happened to me. I lost my job when I was 31. And so I started my own challenge travel stories. And I published them as books and TV shows. So at the age of 33, I started a project called How to Travel the World for Free. Is it possible to travel from Europe to Antarctica without any money for traveling, accommodation, and food? So I prepared for a year, and then I crossed Europe, hitchhiking. I got food by the barter system. I crossed the Atlantic working in a container ship. And then I was hiking through the US state of Ohio. So at one stage, I was hitchhiking, and Mark, an Amish farmer, took me in his buggy. And I asked him, like, what's going on? And he said, yeah, we Amish farmers, live without the car, without the internet, without entertainment. We don't really party, and there is no beer. And I was like, oh, God, that's boring. that's really boring. So he invited me to stay with his family for a couple of days. I slept in the barn, and I participated in his family life, very religious family life. And it was everything but boring, because I experienced a community living a very simple lifestyle, but being really happy. So at the end of my stay, Mark gave me 3 presents: a Bible, a bike to travel to Columbus, Ohio, and $100 to cross the Midwest with a bus. So I arrived with the bus in Albuquerque, New Mexico. And I met Joseph. And I told him my story, and he said, wow, very interesting to do this travel without money. I also live without money, but unfortunately it's not a project. I'm homeless for almost 10 years. So he offered me to stay with him for a couple of days to get an insight of the homeless scene, to report on how homeless people in the United States are being supported, and on the side to get some free food. So I was like, okay, sounds like a very good deal. So here we've been in a food shelter for homeless people, and we got some food. I could interview other homeless people about their situation, and most importantly, Joseph and me became very good friends. So I continued my travel to California, San Francisco, still without money, and there I wanted to take an airplane to Central America, but airplane tickets do cost money. So I developed the service of pillow fighting. So people could chip in $1 and pillow fight me for a minute. So I had 2 pillows in my hand. Awesome, awesome business. Seriously, it's the best business ever. Sometimes even people said, look, you don't need to fight. Me and my boss, we have something to sort out. Give us the pillow, $10. So I made $300 within 10 days in San Francisco, and I could travel to Central America, and from there I could continue without money to South America, work on another ship to Antarctica. There I was. I finished my greatest adventure in my life. And many people made this possible, people who supported me. And many of these people I really met by ringing a doorbell because I needed a place to sleep. So after this trip, I published a book and a TV show called How to Travel the World for Free, since I did film myself with that little camera on the photo. So first I published this in Europe, then in the United States. So a year later, the phone rang. I was still living in Germany, and a lady introduced herself to me as the producer of The Tonight Show. And she said, yeah, I spoke to Leno, and he really likes your story, and he wants you to be on the show to talk about how to travel the world for free. He thinks it's pretty interesting. So do you want to come? And I was like, well, I'm pretty busy. No, just kidding. Already in the plane. Biggest dream ever to be on The Tonight Show. So I was backstage. The show was already running in Los Angeles, and I could see Jay Leno just interviewing Katy Perry. And in the middle, there was a chair waiting for me to go on stage. And at this time, I got really anxious. It felt like, this is too big for me. I'm just this guy from the countryside, and there they are, these people from Hollywood. And I got so anxious that I thought I couldn't make it on stage. But I reminded myself to the doorbell game of my childhood, ringing 100 bells. And I realized that was much more difficult than just going on stage and talking about your travel. So I went on stage. I wasn't nervous anymore. So here I was, Katy Perry, joking around with me, me interviewed by Jay Leno. It was an awesome show, a great experience. A year later, I received an approval for the American green card, and I moved to the United States. So now, here I am, working in supporting other people to find and live their dreams. So thinking back to my early years of my childhood, I see this boy being having a tough start, being anxious, stuttering. I had a hard time to communicate with the other kids. But I am pretty happy that things started a bit bumpy, because this made me face my obstacles. And this, again, opened up many opportunities to live my dreams. So if I think back, and if I imagine, if things would have started easy, without any kind of fear, maybe all the other things wouldn't happen that way afterwards, and maybe I wouldn't even be here. So there is a great quote from the author Richie Norton. To escape fear, you need to go through it, not around. So there are many doorbells to ring, maybe for all of us. And let me say this, if you ring your bell, a door will open and you never know what's going to happen next. Thank you very much.